Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're embarking on, well, one of humanity's most enduring quests, really, understanding ourselves and everyone around us.
Absolutely. It's fascinating stuff.
Our minds, our behaviors, our decisions, I mean, they're just endlessly complex, aren't they? Sometimes contradictory, sometimes,
Yeah.
let's be honest, just baffling.
Yeah, completely. And, the moment we start asking, why did I do that, or what makes them tick, we're basically doing psychology, even if we don't call it that. It's just human nature to wonder.
Exactly. So in this deep dive, we're going to take a sweeping journey through how psychological thought has evolved. We'll be drawing on the insights from 50 psychology classics.
Mm-hmm.
Our mission really is to unpack these different viewpoints quickly, but thoroughly, and hopefully give you some of those aha moments about what makes us tick.
Right. We'll trace how it went from philosophy to science, how the focus shifted from, inner thoughts to outward actions.
And then back again,
Mm.
integrating biology, social stuff. It's a real ride.
It is. Prepare to maybe question some things you thought you knew.
Okay, let's dive in. Where should we start this journey? Probably right at the beginning, when psychology started becoming its own field.
Yeah, makes sense. And you really have to mention William James there. He was really key in carving out its path, separating it from philosophy.
How so? What was his big idea?
Well, he helped spread this really remarkable idea for the time that your entire self, all your hopes, fears, loves, everything, it lives inside the soft gray matter within the walls of the skull.
Ah, so grounding it in the physical brain, moving away from, like, the soul or metaphysics.
Exactly. He helped frame psychology as a natural science. It's about the brain, how it works.
Okay, so James sets the stage scientifically. But who really made psychology a household name?
That you kind of have to give to Sigmund Freud. I mean, born over 150 years ago, and his influence is just undeniable. He's the one who really got the public interested.
Right, he gave us concepts we just throw around now, like the ego or the unconscious mind. We almost take them for granted.
Totally. And of course, the dreams. His whole thing about dreams being a window into the unconscious.
The Royal Road, he called it, revealing suppressed wishes. That image, the Viennese doctor, the couch, it's still the first thing many people picture when they think psychology.
It really is. And his analogy of the conscious mind being just the tip of an iceberg with this huge hitting part underneath driving us, that profoundly shaped how we think about motivation.
But he gets a lot of criticism now, right, for being, quote, unscientific.
Oh, definitely. A lot of his ideas are hard, if not impossible, to test empirically. So yeah, critics call them literary creations sometimes. But his status as maybe psychology's most original thinker kind of sticks.
Huh. Interesting. Is there any sense that his ideas might be revisited?
Well, some neuroscientists actually hint at a kind of comeback. They point out that, brain imaging does state a lot of unconscious processing. It doesn't prove Freud's specific theories, maybe, but the core idea that hidden stuff influences us, that hasn't exactly been disproven.
So the debate continues. Fascinating. Okay, so Freud opens this door to the unconscious. But then Carl Jung takes it even further, right? He talks about something even deeper.
Precisely. Jung looked beyond just the personal unconscious stuff from our own lives. He proposed this idea of a collective unconscious, like a shared, inherited layer of the mind.
Shared. How does that work?
He saw it as this whole subrational architecture, filled with archetypes, instincts, patterns that show up across cultures in myths, art, religion. It exists kind of independently of any one person.
Wow. So like a deep, universal human software.
Sort of, yeah. And for both Freud and Jung, the goal was similar in a way.
Yeah.
Become more aware of these deeper layers, these hidden forces, so you're less likely to be tripped up by life. Understand the iceberg, basically.
Okay, so we got these deep dives into the inner world. But psychology wanted to be a science. So inevitably, there must have been a reaction against all this unobservable stuff.
Absolutely. That's where behaviorism comes crashing in. It was a deliberate countermove. The focus shifts dramatically. Forget the unseen mind. Let's look at what we can see and measure behavior.
And the classic example here is Pavlov, right? With the dogs.
That's the one, Ivan Pavlov. His experiments showed that animals, and by extension, maybe humans, are, in his view, simply the sum of their conditioned responses to environmental stimuli.
Meaning, you learn to react based on what happens around you, like the dogs learning to salivate at the bell.
Exactly. These reflexes could be instilled, learned, unlearned. It showed the brain was malleable, shaped by experience in very predictable ways.
Okay. And this idea really inspired B.F. Skinner. He took it even further.
Oh, yeah. Skinner was provocative. He
Hmm.
basically said the whole idea of an autonomous person driven by an inner motive was a romantic myth. Forget inner drives.
Wow, okay. So what drives us then, according to Skinner?
The environment. Simple as that. He said if you want to know why people act as they do, just figure out what circumstances cause them to act in a certain way. The environment shapes us into what we are.
That sounds deterministic, like we don't have much choice.
That's exactly the debate it sparked. Skinner even proposed a technology of behavior. He believed we could design environments, using rewards essentially, to make people act in more moral or productive ways.
Hmm. You can see why that would cause a stir, the whole free will question.
Big time. It's a debate that's still relevant today, really. How much are we shaped? How much do we choose?
So behaviorism focuses purely on the outside. But, like you said, the pendulum swings. What came next?
Well, by the 1960s, you get the cognitive turn or cognitive psychology. They wanted to bring the scientific rigor back inside the head.
Okay, so how did they do that without being unscientific like Freud, supposedly?
They used experiments, models, trying to understand the processes. They saw the mind not as a blank slate, but as a great interpreting machine. Something that actively made patterns and created sense of the world outside, forming maps of reality.
So it's about how we think, perceive, remember the internal software again, but studied differently.
Exactly. And this shift had huge implications for therapy. Thinkers like Aaron Beck, David Burns, Albert Ellis, they developed treatments based on a really powerful idea
Which was?
that our thoughts shape our emotions, not the other way around. That's a game changer.
Right. So if you feel bad, it might be because of how you're thinking about things.
Precisely. And if you can change your thinking, you can alleviate depression or simply have greater control over our behavior.
Albert Ellis in his rational emotive therapy, RET, really focused on this, didn't he? The things we tell ourselves.
Yeah, he zeroed in on our internal sentences, that constant self-talk. His view is pretty radical. Misery and depression are always states of mind since they're self-perpetuated.
Self-perpetuated. Wow. That sounds potentially quite optimistic, though.
It really is. It suggests that if we understand this mechanism, we can literally choose to be happy by changing those internal sentences. It puts a lot of power back in our hands.
Okay, that focus on well-being leads us nicely into positive psychology, right?
Mm-hmm.
Martin Seligman really pushed for studying what makes life good.
Exactly. Seligman helped shift the focus from just fixing what's wrong to understanding and promoting what makes people happy, optimistic, and productive.
And within that field, there are some surprising findings, like Barry Schwartz's idea about choice.
Oh yeah, the paradox of choice. Super counterintuitive. He argued that restricting our choices can actually make us happier.
Wait, less choice makes you happier. How?
Because too much choice can be paralyzing. It increases the pressure to make the perfect choice, leads to more regret over the options you didn't pick. Think about choosing, I don't know, jam at the supermarket. 20 options might just stress you out. 6 might be easier.
Huh, I can actually see that. Decision fatigue is real.
Totally. Then you have Daniel Gilbert pointing out another quirk. We're pretty bad at predicting what will actually make us happy in the future.
We think we know, but we get it wrong.
Often, yeah. Our brain kind of fills in the blanks about the future based on how we feel now, and it's often inaccurate. We might overestimate the impact of big events, good or bad.
Fascinating. And Robert Thayer brought it down to everyday moods.
Right. He linked moods fundamentally to energy and tension. Things like sleep, diet, exercise, our body clocks, they all play a huge role. He saw moods as a kind of thermometer for our physical and mental state.
And his conclusion on the best way to manage moods.
Exercise. Simple as that. He found it was the best mood regulator, better than almost anything else for a quick boost.
Amazing how often it comes back to the basics. Sleep, move, eat okay.
Pretty much. Foundational for our psychology.
Okay, so we've covered internal thoughts, external behaviors, how we think affects how we feel. What about the underlying biology, the hardware itself?
Yeah, that's been a huge area, a new golden age of insights, really, especially with advances in neuroscience. It's reignited the whole nature versus nurture debate.
And where's the pendulum swinging now? More towards nature.
There's definitely a strong case being made for nature's influence. Steven Pinker, in The Blank Slate, argued really forcefully against the idea that we're completely shaped by environment. He showed that much of what we call human nature, things like intelligence, personality traits, seems to be wired into us in the womb.
Wired in. So genes in prenatal development play a bigger role than maybe behaviorists have thought.
It certainly seems so. You have researchers like Luann Brizendine or Mua and Jessel presenting evidence that many behavioral tendencies, especially related to sex differences, might stem from the sexual biology of our brains, and that this is often largely set by the time the fetus is 8 weeks old.
8 weeks old. Wow. Nature gets a very early start then.
It seems that way. And neuroscience is pushing even further, asking some really, well, uncomfortable questions about the self.
Uncomfortable hand.
People like V.S. Ramachandran, Oliver Sacks. Their work with brain injury and perception suggests that the self, that feeling of I that seems so solid, might be best understood as a sort of illusion that the brain creates.
An illusion. Whoa. So there's no central me spot in the brain.
Doesn't seem to be. The brain is constantly working, integrating information to create and maintain the feeling of an I that is in control. But it might be more of a distributed process, a narrative we construct.
That's a lot to wrap your head around. That the core of you isn't quite what it feels like.
It is profound. But even with all this focus on biology and maybe illusion, other research powerfully reminds us of fundamental needs, like Harry Harlow's work with monkeys.
Ah, the attachment research. That was groundbreaking, wasn't it? Especially back then.
Hugely. It went completely against the behaviorist idea that you just needed food and shelter. Harlow proved the absolute necessity of loving physical attention for healthy development. He basically established love and affection as a primary need, as vital as food or water.
And the lack of it was devastating for those monkeys.
Absolutely. It showed the deep biological roots of our need for connection and care.
Speaking of biology, we should probably touch on Alfred Kinsey's work, too. That caused quite a stir.
Oh, definitely. Kinsey studied human sexual behavior scientifically, which was revolutionary and highly controversial in the mid-20th century. He basically showed how our mammalian biology drives our sexual behaviors.
How so? What did he find that was so shocking then?
Well, he collected data, thousands of interviews, and revealed that things like female masturbation, premarital sex, extramarital affairs, even experiencing orgasm just through fantasy, these were far more common than society admitted. He brought hidden behaviors into the light of scientific observation, challenging taboos.
So biology underpins even our most intimate behaviors.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly. We've looked inside the head, at biology. What about how we interact with each other, the social world?
Crucial area. And Robert Cialdini's work on influence is a classic here. He explored these weapons of influence that people use.
Weapons of influence. Sounds a bit ominous. Well, there's psychological principles like reciprocation, you feel obliged to give back, or commitment and consistency, social proof if others are doing it, it must be right scarcity, things like that.
How do they work?
Cialdini says they tap into our pre-programmed takes or fixed action patterns. They trigger almost automatic yes responses, making us quite vulnerable to persuasion, often without us realizing it.
Good to know about those. Helps you stay vigilant.
Definitely. And then in our closest relationships, you have John Gottman's work, famous for his marriage lab.
Right. He claimed he could predict divorce with amazing accuracy.
Yeah, something like 90% accuracy, based purely on the way they argue. He identified what he called the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse in relationships.
Ooh, dramatic. What are they?
Criticism attacking the person, not the problem. Contempt, that's the really toxic one, showing disgust, rolling eyes, sneering. Defensiveness, always seeing yourself as the victim. And stonewalling, just shutting down, withdrawing.
Yikes. I can see how those would destroy a relationship.
For sure. But Gottman also stressed the positive, the vital importance of friendship and creating shared meaning as the foundation for lasting partnerships.
That makes sense. And what about manipulation in relationships? Susan Forward talked about that.
Yes, she coined the term FOG, fear, obligation, and guilt. She described how people use these emotions to manipulate others, essentially emotional blackmail. Her work emphasizes setting boundaries to protect your own integrity.
Boundaries seem key. Then there's transactional analysis. Eric Bernet, Thomas Harris, parent, adult, child.
Right. They viewed interactions as transactions between these different ego states within us. The nurturing or critical parent, the rational adult, the emotional child. Understanding the games people play, the hidden patterns and motives in these transactions allows us to hopefully move beyond them towards more genuine connection or real intimacy.
Fascinating framework. Okay, shifting to a darker aspect of social influence. Stanley Milgram's experiments, those are really famous and quite chilling.
Extremely chilling. Conducted at Yale, they showed a truly frightening willingness of ordinary people to inflict pain on others simply because an authority figure told them to.
The electric shock experiments.
That's right. It starkly revealed the capacity for man to abandon his humanity under pressure. It speaks to what Hannah Arendt called the banality of evil, how normal people can become agents in a terrible destructive process just by following orders and shifting responsibility.
A really sobering reminder of the power of authority in situations.
Definitely. And related to that, you have Eric Hoffer's work on mass movements in The True Believer. He explored why people join them.
What was his take? Why do people flock to these big causes, sometimes extreme ones?
Hoffer argued it often stems from a deep wish for transformation, a desire to escape personal shortcomings or a miserable present, to be freed of responsibility for their lives. The movement offers pride, purpose, confidence, and hope, a sense of belonging, even if it leads to losing individuality or committing terrible acts.
So it fills a void, but potentially dangerous one.
Exactly. It taps into powerful psychological needs.
Wow. Okay, so we've covered a huge amount of ground. From James defining the mind as a subject of study, through Freud and Jung plumbing the unconscious.
To the behaviorists focusing on observable actions, then the cognitive revolution bringing thought back into the scientific picture, and positive psychology asking what makes life fulfilling.
Then grounding it all in our biology, our brains, our genes, even questioning the self, while also acknowledging fundamental needs like love.
And finally, navigating that complex social world of influence, persuasion, relationships, and obedience, both good and bad. It's quite a journey psychology has taken.
It really is. And what stands out is how each perspective adds a piece to the puzzle, doesn't it? No single one seems to have the complete answer.
Absolutely. It's like that Alfred Adler quote that psychology is still kind of like chemistry occupied in the days of alchemy. We're constantly refining, learning more. It's an ever-evolving science. We've come a long way, but the quest to fully understand ourselves, that definitely continues.
So for you listening, this whole exploration shows that understanding ourselves, understanding others, it's this ongoing process, right? We're shaped by all these forces, hidden drives, learned habits, conscious thoughts, our biology, the people around us.
Having this awareness, this broader picture, it really does equip you better to navigate your own mind, your relationships, the world, just more thoughtfully.
So the final question for you is maybe with this deeper understanding of all the different forces playing within and around you, what will you do with it? How might you use this awareness to not just observe your own human nature, but maybe actively shape it and how you engage with everything around you? Something to think about.